Welcome to the Sip and Scale podcast, where we talk about everything business, entrepreneurship, and startups. My name is Blendi Muriqi. I'm the CEO and founder of Delegate.co. Each week, you'll join us as we talk with industry experts and business owners, sharing actionable insights to drive your business forward. So grab your favorite beverage and let's sip our way to success. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Sip and Scale podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a good friend of mine, Jason Lopez, who is the VP of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Success at Jurny. We previously, Delegate joined the Jurny podcast, and we decided to invite Jason onto the Sip and Scale podcast today. Welcome, Jason. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Blendi. Great to be here. Appreciate the invite. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, definitely. I want to frame this conversation around your experience in sales. I know that a few months ago, I was building out a sales team and processes, and one of the first people I came to kind of talk about structuring a sales team was you. And I want to first get an idea of your background, how you got into sales, and then we can talk about how that evolved into where you are today at Jurny.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like many people in sales, I kind of just fell into it. I never actually wanted to be a salesperson, quite honestly. When I was young, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and it looks like you're familiar with it.
A lot of people have read that book. I think the guy's gotten crazy over the years now. He's a little bit of a fringe character, but the principles of the book are still very valuable.
Yeah, I got a lot out of that book, actually. And one of the big takeaways for me personally was, I think he mentions a story about getting a job at like a used car dealership to get over his fear of sales and his fear of rejection, which was one of my fears, or I guess two of my fears growing up. I was like fairly introverted. I think I still am, honestly. Went out, got a job in sales. I was working in banking for a long time, about 5 years, worked my way up through the ranks, became a business banker at one point for one of the top 3 banks in the US. Well, actually 2 of the top 3 banks in the US at this point. And honestly hated banking, to be quite honest. It's very bureaucratic, a lot of red tape, but I was very successful. And I always had a big interest in technology and also owning my own business at some point. So startups were a very natural fit for me. And I was able to make a transition to a local tech company, not really a startup, but it was like a spin-off of another company, and spent some time doing that. That's kind of how I got my foot in the door on the tech side of things. Was also very successful there, kind of had a knack for sales, funny enough, and landed in the short-term rental game, which is kind of how our paths crossed. I've been in the short-term rental side now, STR business, for 6 years.
For those of you that don't know, Jurny started out as a property management company, and then they transitioned from property management to software. So did you start off at Jurny?
No, I started with another company, which is now a competitor. But yeah, I've been with Jurny going on 4 years now, I think. And yeah, we were a property management company. So I was here for the entire transition from like that service-led type of business to a more product-led business where, we're offering a technology product at this point. And so that was a lot of fun. I say that sarcastically, but honestly, a lot of really good learning lessons and takeaways from that whole experience. And yeah, so now I've been with Jurny for going on 4 years and have really gotten an awesome chance to put my fingerprints on it. Had really great opportunities to build up a lot of different parts of the business, obviously from the sales side, from the marketing side, the customer success side most recently.
I'd love to unpack that a little bit. So you have your fingers in a lot of places within the company and you're taking on a lot of responsibilities. When you first started at Jurny, was it just you in sales? Were you responsible for building out the team? Walk me through like the evolution of how, and this is geared towards people that maybe they're very early on in their startup and they're going from selling the product themselves to bringing someone on to sell the product for them. What was that evolution like at Jurny when you came on?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I was initially brought on as the sales director in a time when we were still offering property management services, a little bit of a different model, similar to kind of what you're doing with Delegate, a remote model where we didn't do anything on the ground, but we did all of the virtual administration, guest communications, revenue management. And I was brought on to help develop and sell the tech side of the product that was being developed. So there were kind of 2 teams at that point, and I wound up selling both products, quite honestly, because we're still a startup, but we're kind of hitting that scale up, I think, very soon here. And so, with any startup, you kind of have your fingers in a lot of pies. Sold both products, learned a lot about the management side of the business, which I had previously only really known from talking to other property managers that I was on the vendor side selling the product to.
Now, at that point, you guys made the transition from selling this property management solution to the software side. And usually when that happens, like you have to start building up a team. Walk me through what prior experiences actually helped you in assembling that sales team, and then how you learned to actually manage a sales team. I'm assuming this would be like the first time within your career you're actually managing multiple people and multiple initiatives.
Definitely multiple departments. So the most important thing I would say is you have to have mentors. I had a lot of like coaches that I paid for, but now that I've been in the industry for a long time, I just have literally a bunch of mentors that I can call up anytime and just ask like, hey man, how do you deal with this problem or, this scenario that you have going on? And so I think that's key to being able to navigate like tricky situations. One of the biggest problems, honestly, for sales leaders and revenue leaders just in general is that you're often promoted just because you're like a top producer, but that doesn't necessarily translate to leadership skills. I think having mentors is key. I think another super important kind of aspect to it is you have to have a growth mindset at all times. And so that's one of the things that I look for when I'm hiring is for people to have a growth mindset, because if you don't, then you can kind of fall into that trap of thinking that you know best and that you have nothing left to learn, which couldn't be further from the truth. Like even in all the departments I've helped build up here, one of the best ways to kind of improve those departments is direct feedback from the people that you're leading, right? And working with them on solutions to problems. That way they're part of those solutions and they don't feel like you're just dictating, remedies. So I think those two things, having a growth mindset, always be learning, and having mentors that can help guide you along that path. I think, that's how you can ultimately be successful as a leader. And that's kind of what I've done.
Do you view yourself now as almost like, I see it now being overseeing a separate sales team at Delegate. My position is more so one of accountability. So it's literally looking at metrics, looking at the numbers we're bringing in every single month, and then holding our sales team accountable to their initiatives. Is that the main part of your job nowadays? Or are you still picking up calls and taking sales calls and doing the nitty-gritty business development?
I do a little bit of everything, to be honest. I don't think I'll ever stop taking sales calls. We officially made the decision that I would not actively sell day to day anymore, but I still do some of my own prospecting, some of my own demos. And I found that that's one of the best ways to stay in touch with the market and kind of the needs of your ICPs, your ideal client profiles. So yeah, I don't think I'll ever stop on that end. But yes, to your point, a big part of leading, especially in a sales department, is data. You have to be a data nerd. And one of my favorite sayings is what gets measured gets managed. So super, super important to have your metrics, your KPIs nailed down, know what good looks like. And you should reverse engineer from your goals, reverse engineer how many leads do you need to hit those goals? Of those leads, how many calls do I need to make to get those leads? How much outbound do I need to do? How much inbound are we expecting?
I remember I saw a tweet somewhere, and this guy, he had a service-based business, and he had a discussion with a mentor, and they were talking about what it would take to get to, I don't know, something like $20 million ARR. And he reverse engineered the whole process and figured, okay, he's going to need a team of 20 salespeople. He's going to need 5 customer success managers, and he's going to need to put this much money into paid advertising every single month to get those results. When you put it in that perspective, it makes the vision a lot clearer, because you're like, okay, start with the end goal and then work your way backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you from experience, getting to 20 mil is not easy, but definitely doable, and much easier if you have a solid roadmap, so to speak, because you've done the work to reverse engineer that and know I need this much volume in terms of leads. I need this many people able to handle those leads. I need 5 customer success managers to be able to support those customers once we convert them.
But then on the other side of it, and this is where it's such it's an ecosystem within your company, where if one thing breaks, let's say the customer success aspect of the business breaks, or the product itself, you have the issue of churn. And now you have to sell a lot more to keep up with that churn. So when it comes to your conversations with, let's say, your dev team and actual product development, how much influence and say do you have in taking customer feedback, which you're hearing on a daily basis, and then communicating that to those that are actually creating the product so that you can bolster it?
I have the luxury and the curse of having like a direct line to God, so to speak, in terms of dev. But the reality is that you have to maintain a tight feedback loop between sales and customer success to dev, because those are the teams that are speaking with your customers and your prospects the most. They're having those conversations. And so they're going to have that direct feedback for the dev team. So again, fortunate to have a direct line to our CTO. I do have the influence over kind of what gets developed, what's next in the pipeline. With that also comes the responsibility that everything that you're requesting is getting built. So there are no excuses for not selling, right? Because you're getting your wish list.
You guys are providing an online platform, an AI product to the market for short-term rental managers. In the evolution of Jurny over the last few years, how has your ICP changed, and how have you guys like changed with time? Because when you first start, you might have an idea of, okay, this is going to be our ideal customer, and then over time that changes. I can speak for myself. Like here at Delegate, we started out as our ideal customer profile was the short-term rental, vacation rental operator with X number of properties. And over the last few months, we have shifted and we have seen that there's a much larger market in various other industries that we can tap into, especially because now with the proliferation of AI, the need for customer service agents is going to decrease every single year. So I'd be interested in hearing, how has that evolution occurred at Jurny, and what have you guys done to continue to like change up your marketing and your sales techniques with those changes in the ICP?
It's a great question. I think it's one of the things that companies, especially early stage companies, probably struggle with the most, because in the early days, especially if you raise any kind of money like we did, expectations are high. And so you kind of just want to land customers. And so it's easy to fall into the trap of talking to anyone and everyone that will take a call. And so we did that for a little while. Honestly, we tried to serve short-term rental, vacation rental, property managers, hosts. Didn't matter if they had, one property or 1,000. Obviously, the more the merrier. But, over time, we kind of realized that we were spending a lot of time, energy, effort, and our sales team specifically spending a lot of time, energy, effort, doing demos, doing follow-ups, doing calls for anyone less than 10 properties, I'd say. It's not that we don't want those clients. It's just that we don't want to spend a ton of time trying to convert those clients.
At that point, you have to figure out, okay, how can we onboard these clients, but spend less resources in terms of manpower, sales, customer success, into onboarding them.
Exactly. So one of the things we did was we implemented a unit minimum for our sales team. And once they started to say no, it's funny how once you start to kind of say no to people, politely, of course, like we're not just, shutting the door, but you tell them no and they're like, wait, why? Why not? Why not me? Like, I want your product. So that's interesting to see. But, we actually saw our numbers increase when we did that, because now the time and effort and energy is spent on higher paying clients, clients that may be a better fit for the sales side to engage with. One of the other things that we did is we automated as much as we could on the onboarding side and made it as simple as possible. We're still doing a lot of work on that end, honestly, because we do want to be able to serve that long tail of the market. And we implemented our own AI help desk that users can just interact with to get a better understanding of how to do certain things in the system, coupled with a knowledge base that is, maintained literally like every day.
I mean, I know we're users of the Jurny system here at Delegate, and actually in July, we're just starting off with, we just got another client with 40 something units, and we're helping with their onboarding. It's funny how it's become a good union. You guys referred the client to Delegate, I believe, and now because we've been Jurny power users, now we're kind of going to help with a lot of the onboarding. As someone that has had to do onboarding with every PMS there is out there, I know that it's a lot of hand holding, especially when you're transitioning. Oh my God, if you're transitioning from one PMS to another, it's a process. And a lot of clients and PMs, they have a lot of frustration in that transition. But I definitely agree with the sentiment. We had the same thing here at Delegate when we first started, where we would take on any and all clients. And we still do take any and all clients, but we realized that our ideal customer profile is an established property management company. At least in the short-term rental space, it's an established property management company that has experience managing people. At the end of the day, like, our responsibility is to staff up an organization. And what we realized is that for for those operators that were managing like 1 to 5 units. They've never managed anyone, some of them at least, never managed anyone in their life. They don't know the pain, but they don't know how to really like leverage human capital. And at the same time, on the technology side, they don't know how to leverage technological capital. So that's where those types of clients, they take up a lot of your resources.
I'm curious though, you mentioned, honing in a little bit on your ICP in terms of like what you found to be, other than short-term rental, operators, to also be a good fit for your services.
Executives at tech companies, service-based companies, talking HVAC, plumbing, construction. These are companies that have leaders that are usually out in the field. And so with these service-based businesses, they need back office administrative help. And then with that, we're able to deal with their scheduling, handle their emails. If it's bookkeeping, that's a huge opportunity for us to provide services to these types of companies. So we're seeing demand in that front. The beautiful thing about going after executives at larger companies is a lot of times they're still doing various tasks on a daily basis that really are under their pay grade. The value proposition that we offer to them is like, you don't have the time and luxury to be investing in dealing with scheduling, dealing with your travel coordination, scheduling a date night with your wife or a vacation with your family. And that's where like an executive assistant really comes in handy. And what we're trying to do now is train our executive assistants to be very versatile with AI so they can better leverage their time helping the executive.
I definitely see the need for it.
Yeah. Goes back to the conversation we were having on the previous podcast, where I think that there are a great majority of tasks and responsibilities are going to be automated, as we see with Jurny. But there's always going to be the opportunity for a human being to really come in and deal with those edge cases that AI has yet to handle.
Fully agree.
So switch from sales to marketing. How are you guys marketing Jurny nowadays? What's the approach? Is it, focusing on events? Is it focusing on just content? I've seen a lot of content online going on different podcasts, press releases. How are you guys tackling the marketing of the platform?
That's a challenging question. As you know, as I'm sure you know, there's only about 2 to 3% of your market that is in buying mode at any given time. And so if you're chasing that 2 or 3% along with all of your competitors, that doesn't leave much room for growth, honestly. So you need to figure out ways to educate the market on why they should look at a solution. We're fortunate to have like a pretty unique solution in the space, although we do have many competitors. Very few of them, if any, are able to compete on the AI front with us. And so in that case, we're very fortunate, but it takes a lot of education with a product like AI that is still relatively new. I know that you're using AI a lot, we're using AI a lot, but we're still like the early adopters. And so content is definitely key. We have fortunate to have a really, really great marketing manager that just churns out like blog posts, social media posts. Our CEO and founder, Luca, he does a great job of doing the podcasts and the webinars and all of that. All of that has really worked in our favor. We also kind of found a strategy where I'm sure we've done a few crowdfunding campaigns at this point. And what we realized is that a lot of real estate investors, a lot of them like retail style investors are real estate investors. And so they may own rental properties so that not only do they invest in the company, they become users of Jurny. And that's kind of like the perfect mix because they're not just users, they're like super fans because now they're invested. And so they tell all their friends about it. We don't spend actually very much on marketing at all. We don't do AdWords anymore. Facebook, we spend very, very little on marketing.
There's not that high of an ROI on it these days. I mean, especially a very niche product and in a niche market. It's a huge market. But when you're in the short-term rental space and you have so many competitors, your price per click just skyrockets.
Yeah, especially some of our competitors are very, very well funded.
Yeah. I see now when I'm on YouTube or online, I get advertisements from some of those property management softwares. One of my clients, he has a property management company down in South Florida, and we were just doing a touch base with him, and I was commending him because I saw that on my Facebook feed, there were advertisements showing up with his property management company. And I was like, yeah, really love the ads. And he's like, great, don't click on any of them. It's like, no problem. We're facing right now that same dilemma in our space. It's super competitive because it's a low barrier to entry in that anyone can, quote unquote, recruit overseas talent and then match them with businesses. Not everyone can do it very well and have very low churn and very high customer satisfaction. And because of that, the ad spend, it's crazy. Like the cost per click is insane. So we've had to really dial in on content and just being able to market our message to business owners across the United States, the benefits of using overseas talent. And that's the long game.
Yes, it is. I've seen a lot of your content, by the way. You guys are doing a good job.
Yeah, we're trying. We've managed to increase just in like a short period of time, an exponential increase in followers and impressions on the page. So we're looking at a lot of the tech startups out there that have managed to build a following in a very short period of time. And really it's like honing in on media like this, podcasts, collaborations with other companies, and being able to put that out there, because the more you're in front of someone's face, the more someone's going to hear about your product or solution. So we're really focused in on that.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Actually, I'll give you a little bit of quick story that will validate kind of exactly what you just said. So one of the first things that we did when we first launched our tech product is we made it available for free. We made the whole PMS available for free. If you go to our website now, we have a version that's free, but it wasn't that. It was literally like the full PMS. And we had like no signups. Nobody knew about it. And so we took it down and kind of went back to the drawing board. We wound up relaunching it, did a lot of like pre-launch work to advertise it. And then it was, wildly successful, but it takes a lot of work. Like you have to make sure people know about it and people understand what the value of it is before you just like try to give something away. Or it's not like if you build it, they will come.
Sometimes you even have to advertise your free stuff. Yeah, I think that definitely there's these outlets like LinkedIn, Twitter. To be honest with you, I'm not as active on Twitter and X as I am on LinkedIn, but I've seen people build, multi-million-dollar businesses off of their X network, especially in the real estate space. There's a whole like real estate retweet community of real estate people on Twitter. And it's all a bunch of like dads in their 30s and 40s that like golfing, but they built a community and they were able to monetize it.
I'm not on like any social media platforms except for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But I know several people on LinkedIn that have literally 7-figure annual incomes off of the communities that they've built through LinkedIn.
That's insane. Yeah, I see it with coaching. So in the coaching space, it's huge. And what's interesting about that space is you have such a broad ICP, because as a coach, you can like teach certain principles that are applicable in any business vertical. Sales coaches is one thing I think of, wellness coaches, leadership. I'm starting to get a lot of people following that are sales coaches. There's so many of them. I don't know what differentiates them.
Experience, maybe, following.
Yeah. So transitioning a little bit to leadership, you're managing multiple departments within Jurny. What are some of the things that you've learned along the way about how you lead that you've had to change or you've had to pivot? Because as leaders, we always go into building a company and we have certain traits, personality traits that are just who we are. And in order for the company to grow, we have to like build our character up to fit the needs of the company. I'd be curious to hear about your journey as a leader within the company and how you've evolved personally.
Leadership is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I think one of the biggest challenges for me personally when I got into leadership was calibrating my expectations. One thing that I had to realize was that, I was kind of put in a leadership position, not entirely, but for a large part because of my abilities on the sales side specifically. And I had to understand that not everyone is going to be as motivated or as hungry or as big of an overachiever as I was. And so that was a big learning lesson, just understanding like what the capabilities of your team are. And like sometimes I would get upset about things and just be like, why aren't they just doing it like the way that I'm telling them? Just do it this way and like things will be good. And you have to come to terms with the fact it doesn't work that way. So I read a book by John Maxwell called Developing the Leader Within You. Highly recommend it to anyone that is listening in leadership that hasn't read it. But that helped a lot. It helped me understand. He talks about in the book the 5 different levels of leadership. And it's first is the position leader. And so that's the person that is a leader by title because they've been put in the position. And the The position leader is very rarely going to be able to influence the team to do the things that they need them to do, because there's really no reason why they're following you other than you have the title. And the second level is the permission leader. Permission leader has earned the permission from their team to lead them, usually by building relationships with them. Then the third level leader is the production leader. And so that leader is someone that has made significant contributions to the company, usually, or the organization. It's a lot easier for me to lead a sales team specifically, if I can show that I can sell and do it really well, versus like they've never seen me sell like $1 in the history of the company.
Yeah, you have a track record.
Exactly. Then it goes through, the rest of the fourth is the people leader, which is the leader that people follow because of what they have done for them. Typically that involves growth, helping people achieve, maybe promotions, salary raises, whatever. And then the fifth is the pinnacle leader, which is someone like Nelson Mandela, for example, or Martin Luther King, which are like once in a generation type leaders, which very few of us will probably ever achieve that status.
Interesting. And what leader did you realize you are in the context of your career thus far?
I'd like to say I'm working on becoming a people leader. So I think I'm a level 3 production, made, significant contributions to the company, working on that people leader.
Yeah, I think we all are. You have this tunnel vision as a founder or someone that's an early stage company, where you think that everyone around you, because we're all in this startup environment, we're all very hungry, grow the company, and you go to sleep and you realize like there's no one that's going to be as hungry as you are. And it's a realization that you have to make in order to like push forward and then figure out what incentive structure you could put in place to bring the best out of people. And the reality is like people that come to work at your company, it is oftentimes transactional in nature, but there are ways you can motivate them, incentivize them. And I think it's about giving them responsibility and growth opportunities that they can take credit for. And that's where I've seen, like, at least at our company, I've seen the most satisfaction. It's from the small wins that our team members have and can claim as their own.
I fully agree. I think, well, I'm on the lead a sales team too. So one of the biggest motivators, obviously, for salespeople tends to be money, which is, it's fine. Probably the biggest motivator that I've seen in people across different teams, not just sales, is growth opportunities. And so I think when people can have those opportunities and, to your point, claim wins as their own and get the recognition for it, I think that's very powerful.
What about hiring? So I'm sure you've had to make a number of strategic hires to the company. I personally, when I started in this business, I had never hired anyone in my life. So we all start sucking at something. I sucked at hiring. And I'd love to know how you sucked less over the last few years, because that's the expression. We all just try and suck less every day, So I'd love to hear about like what your hiring strategy is, how you started off in hiring, and how you've kind of developed that skill, because it's an important aspect of building the business.
Arguably, many people would argue that as a VP of sales, it's the number one responsibility. I wouldn't argue that, but it's definitely up there. I use a scorecard first and foremost for every single position that I hire for. So I have a scorecard for sales reps, marketing, customer success, manager level, individual contributor level. That helps me keep it objective first and foremost, and also avoid recency bias. So if I do an interview today and then a week goes by while I'm still conducting interviews, the ones that are freshest in my mind are going to be like the ones that I'm probably the more biased towards. So I found using a scorecard is like my secret weapon, so to speak, in hiring. But aside from that, which I think you do really well, is we don't limit hiring to US people only. There's a lot of really great talent all over the world. And, you can find really great assets to your team that speak perfect English or whatever language you need, to be honest. And if you limit yourself to like certain markets, you're excluding a lot of that talent. So and you're probably going to pay more for it.
You guys have, I know Svetlana personally, Mauricio. You guys have like one person in the United States, one person in Spain. You've got Spanish speakers, you've got Italians, English speakers, Filipinos. I'm 100% agree with you. I think that you're holding your company back if you don't expand your horizons beyond the United States borders. We wouldn't be able to scale, delegate to what it is today without focusing on our energy on hiring overseas. There's a lot of benefits to it from a cost perspective, as well as just culture. There's a ton of really hardworking people overseas.
Yeah, I know you mentioned culture in a different context, but curious to hear how because that's one of the things that like you you hear a lot, especially in business, is, culture and how you develop specifically at Delegate, like what you've gone, like what steps you've taken or things you've done to really develop like a solid company culture and what that culture should, like what you want it to look like.
We've framed it from like an education standpoint where we're all trying to learn from each other. So in our business, every virtual assistant or executive assistant, they are given a client. So what's difficult is you're basically representing multiple people, companies, and you might not have interaction with anyone from your team, from the rest of the company, except like customer success or maybe sales. And so we've had to develop a culture of collaborative learning. So in the absence of team collaboration, you have team learning where each and every one of us can teach each other something, whether it's management skills, communication skills with the client. So that's a big reason that people stay at Delegate, is because they have a culture where everybody is learning. The other thing that we've really instilled is, and which it goes along with the education component of it, consistent learning, is the ownership mindset. We want everyone within the company to feel like they are becoming an owner of the business that they're representing. And we want people to think like a business owner. I always say this to all of our team members. My goal is for you to absorb enough business acumen where in a few years, if you wanted to, you could go out and build a business yourself because you've absorbed enough from the different interactions you've had with key stakeholders where you have the skills, you could go do it yourself. And I tell people that the first interview that we have with them, my goal is for you to be an expert in whatever domain you're in. And so having that type of culture, I think it's appreciated by all the team members and they view it as like, okay, this is a company that I can actually stay out for years and then end up being 10 times better on the other side.
I love that. I could not agree more. I have literally said the same thing to our teams here at Jurny. And yeah, I mean, you're working day in and day out, usually with the same type of customer. And they may be in the business, but you're dealing with dozens of people in the business. And so you have the luxury of having more than just a single perspective. And so your opinion matters and your knowledge and expertise matters because you should be advising. I mean, like for our customer success team, for example, you should be advising these customers on best practices in the industry, what you've seen your other successful customers that are, what they're doing. Literally that exact line. Like you should become such an expert that if you want, you can start your own consulting business or property management business. So I love that. I couldn't agree more.
And what I've realized is there's going to be a good portion of people that they take advantage of that opportunity, and maybe after a few years under their belt they go and they start their own business, and I'm proud of. I'll give you an example. I had at the property management company that I worked at initially outside of college, I rose through the ranks and basically became the operations manager for the whole company. And there came a point where I knew more than even the CEO of the company when it came to operating, scaling the business. And there was always something that was holding me back. I always thought, okay, it's money. I just want more compensation. But really, it was more growth opportunities. And now when we have people come into Delegate and they've done their rounds and they have achieved a certain level of expertise, I understand that they might go off and do amazing things, and I can't hold anything against them for feeling that way.
No, it's a bittersweet feeling, I would imagine, where you're happy because, you're happy for them and all that they've learned and all they've been able to grow, but also a little bit sad that you're losing them.
Yeah, it's like that, you have like a little kid, he grows up, goes to high school. But with that said, we try our best to build a culture where people want to continue to stay at the company because they love the people they work with and they love the growth opportunities within the company and just seeing the company grow. On a personal note, we're in kind of two different boats where I'm currently childless. I know that you have a baby at home. Tell me what it's like to, manage a whole operation that is Jurny and at the same time, raise a family.
That's a good question. Definitely raising a baby is the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done. Just seeing probably get off this call here in a little bit and go spend some time with her. She's 10 months now. She's doing like all these cute little things, like, giggling at you. She learned how to wave recently. So like she waves at you now when you're coming in or leaving. All of these little milestones, as small as they are, they're just so amazing to see and like experience. So it's incredibly rewarding. Honestly, love being a dad more than I ever would have expected. I always tell people like all the cliches that you hear about parenthood are absolutely true. You're going to worry about like the craziest things. You're also going to love this little monster, for lack of a better word, more than anything. Usually, I've always heard I wouldn't do anything different. Like I wouldn't take it back for anything. Like, yes, it's hard. Yes, you're going to have sleepless nights, but I wouldn't even think about taking it back. So I love that. And then I'm fortunate that I have a lot of flexibility with Jurny, a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of flexibility to kind of get my work done on my own terms. And so sometimes, that's late nights after I've put the baby down. Sometimes that's early mornings before she gets up, but also fortunate to have a lot of help for grandparents.
It's good to have those grandparents on standby.
Yes, they are critical, definitely critical to the cause.
Yeah, definitely. Cool, man. I appreciate the conversation. I think that you've been the inspiration that I've gotten on the sales side has come from conversations with you. So it's nice to have someone that's on the sales side here on the podcast. And we're really happy for those of you that are watching. If you have not checked out the Jurny property management software, check them out. We're power users here at Delegate. They have probably one of the best customer success teams of all the property management softwares I have dealt with. It's very high touch. And so definitely check them out. Jason, if you have any like last words where people can connect with you, it's your time to shine.
Thank you, man. No, that's very kind of you to say. I really appreciate it. I think I've told you before too, but you are genuinely one of my favorite people, like very genuine and very funny too off camera. Don't let Blendi's professionalism fool you. He's a character. Anyone curious can connect with us at jurny.com, www.jurny.com, and sign up for free. You can submit a demo request or you can live chat with us and we're happy to help.